The Safe Drive Stay Alive initiative was piloted in February 2006, and since then we have gone on to see over 55,000 young people aged 16 to 18 across West Sussex. These young people are either looking to start to learn to drive or have been driving for a short while. Chris Bowles, the show's presenter, explains.
The show highlights all of the dangers that our young people may encounter on our roads, such as excessive speed, inexperience, not wearing a seatbelt, using a mobile phone, and the consequences of drink and drug driving. The show also highlights the consequences of peer pressure to both drivers and the passengers getting into their car.
The show is especially important for our young people. In the last 3 years, 16 to 24-year-olds made up 45% of the killed and seriously injured from road traffic collisions on our roads.
The show combines narrative film footage of a typical day out for one group of teenagers, which ultimately ends in devastation. Real-life stories are brought bravely to the stage by those people whose lives have been changed irrevocably by a road traffic collision.
One of those people is Georgina Day, who lost her 2 sons, Barry and Tim, in 2 separate road crashes less than 12 months apart.
One lost control of his motorbike, went across in Tim's pathway, taking Tim out. Now when we got to the hospital, I just couldn't believe it. Can't believe it. And I had to go and identify my son with his wife on his birthday.
Georgina joined the team from the outset back in 2006 and has continued to share her double tragedy and explains the devastating effect it has had on her life.
I come in touch with Safe Drive and I thought, well, if we can save a family going through what we're going through, I'll have to do it, for my boy's sake at least. Now please not to tell me that Barry was killed at 8:30 that morning. In the meantime, Barry was coming to the courts with us at Winchester. We were going to get Tim's verdict, and we were supposed to get the verdict on the Tuesday. And the police knocked the door on the Friday to say we'd lost Barry. Their memories will always be kept alive while I'm doing Safe Drive. So I just couldn't bear the thought of a family going through what we're going through, because it's devastating. To me, it makes them realise when they see us and see us talking about all our problems, what's happened, the tragedies in our life. I think it makes them realise and stand up and think, hang on, this could happen to me. I've really got to think. And I think Safe Drive brings it right to them, which is a good thing.
40% of newly qualified drivers will have an accident in their first 6 months of driving. This may be just a rear shunt or a catastrophic event that will not only end their life and possibly others, but destroy the lives of friends and family. Not to mention the impact this will have on emergency services who have to deal with these incidents on a daily basis.
Members of the emergency services also deliver their own accounts of real incidents they have attended, and these types of incidents have affected them. This includes a firefighter, a paramedic, traffic police officer, and a National Health Service nurse or doctor.
I walked closer and the windows had been smashed in the impact. As I looked in, I could see there was a man and a woman sat in the front, and it turns out they were husband and wife. Even with my limited medical knowledge, I could see that due to the horrific injuries they'd sustained, that they'd been killed.
Glenn MacArthur has been a police officer for 20 years, 14 of them as a road traffic officer. He has attended many road traffic collisions and has been the bearer of tragic news to many families of young people who have either been seriously injured or lost their lives on the roads of Sussex.
I think when you look at the age that people start riding and driving, so from 16 onwards, they've only had the likes of mum and dad to drive them around and push bike, so you don't tend to gain the experience that you do obviously later in life. Between the age of 16 and 25, obviously the lack of on-road hands-on experience is missing, and the only way that people build that up is by getting out there and trying it. Unfortunately, when we look at cars and bikes, if you get it wrong, it can go very horribly wrong.
And as I got closer, I could see it was the driver of the blue BMW car. He was screaming so loud as he was trapped by his legs, and the fire service were cutting him out. The extent of the damage to his car was so severe that the engine was a further 50 metres up the road.
I think from the audience point of view, they have very little contact with the emergency services, and the only contact they may ever see is when a fire appliance or a police vehicle or an ambulance goes past them on the way to something. So to hear real life experiences from ourselves can add the personal touch, I think, because obviously at an incident there are a number of different services involved and different aspects, and their own perception of what's gone on. It can be quite wide-ranging across the three services.
In 2005, 16-year-old Joshua Skinner was tragically killed late at night whilst riding his motor scooter at Shoreham-by-Sea in West Sussex. It was at 1:45 a.m. when Joshua's mother Paula had the knock on the door from the police, which completely devastated the entire family, his friends and fellow students at Chichester College, where Joshua was a very popular student.
On Monday, the 10th of October 2005, Josh came to college as normal, then came home and met up with a few friends, and then he went off to work. He rang me during the evening, and he was planning his week ahead, only to have his life cut short that evening on his way home. By 11 o'clock, Josh was dead.
The pilot started back in 2005, which was the same year that my son was killed in a road traffic accident, and he was a student at Chichester College who were asked to take part in the pilot. So it just seemed a natural follow-on to channel some of that positiveness into something that would achieve some sort of result.
The professional men and women that you have just seen in that film are very real. And one particular police officer is very real to me because he was given a job to do on the night of the 10th of October. And that job was to ring on our doorbell at 1 o'clock in the morning to tell us that Josh had not survived.
I don't think young people really think about what news stories they hear. Everything is, they're so young, and everything is something that happens to other people. Even when they hear things on the news, it doesn't really go in. So to get up and do something and say, no, this isn't a story that, in a film, this isn't a computer game, this is real, and take a moment to think about the impact it really would have on your family. Hopefully we do get into their heads and possibly make them hesitant about getting into a vehicle that might be the last journey they have. So for me, it's just trying to relate my story and make them think about things more than just brushing it off as that's something that happens to other people, that'll never happen to me.
Paula joined the Safe Drive Stay Alive team in 2006 and continues to tell her tragic story and certainly delivers some thought-provoking messages. Her speech is extremely powerful and from the heart.
Drivers, think. Don't drive under the influence of drink. Don't use your phone, and don't show off because it's not big. Passengers, think about what you're doing. You are putting the most precious thing that your family has into someone else's hands. And that precious thing is your life.
On the 20th of September 2005, Alan Carney, then aged 17, was a passenger in a car which collided with a 3.5-ton lorry. Alan was seriously injured and had to be resuscitated at the scene. The paramedics feared that Alan had a catastrophic brain injury and had him airlifted to a hospital in London.
I remained in intensive care for a further 3 weeks while stable enough and had to breathe for myself again because I had machines, pipes, the lot, all breathing for me, keeping me alive. After this period of keeping me alive, I then attended 2 rehabilitations.
After undergoing major surgery, Alan spent 9 weeks in intensive care with machines keeping him alive. Once off the machines, he then spent many months in rehabilitation, learning such basic skills as eating, walking, and how to look after himself.
We've been doing it for about 7 years now, Safe Drive Stay Alive. Alan was in rehabilitation when we first heard about it, being at Chichester College as a student.
Yeah, and I felt it helped me with my rehabilitation actually, because I was like very self-confident myself. I wouldn't go out without people pointing at me because of what I had to go through since the car accident. I had like part of my skull and that were missing, so I had like people pointing and staring and talking about me, and it kind of got me really down. But then I found when I come and did Safe Drive Stay Alive, because I was getting such an applaud from the audience that were listening to me, it was boosting my confidence, and I felt I was doing something for the college kids as well as myself. And like I say, because I get good feedback each year of doing this, it brings me back the following year to be able to give a good performance and sort of like a good kind of experience of what I've been through. And I think a lot of people do listen to me, and like I say, for me it certainly helps me with my confidence.
Alan's ambition was to be a police officer, an ambition he can never fulfil as the collision has left him with limited sight.
4.5 weeks they switched the machine off. He's now got a new life, he's breathing for himself. 6 weeks he wakes out of the coma. It's like a new life being born. I cried my eyes out. So did his mum, so did his sister and friends.
Also speaking on stage is John, Alan's father, who speaks about the ordeal from the parents' perspective and mentions the prospects of having to make a decision on turning off the machines that were keeping Alan alive.
With the Safe Drive Stay Alive team, they made us at ease, helped us along, and it's putting back to, like, because Alan was on death's door and we nearly lost him. The students that were with him in the class as well, they come up to say their bye-byes, and so he was saying sort of like more or less thank you as well, and helping you get through things, basically. Yeah. And if it saves someone's life from this college or outside, with Safe Drive Stay Alive, then I know we're doing a good job, or the team, should I say, is doing a good job for Safe Drive Stay Alive.
Hello, my name is Spencer. I thought I'd start out today by telling all of you a little bit about my life.
Former county rugby star Spencer Aston, then aged 15 years, was a rear seat passenger in a friend's car and wearing a seatbelt. The driver lost control of the car, spun around and was T-boned by an oncoming vehicle. The front seat passenger died from injuries and the driver of the car was unscathed. Other rear seat passengers suffered head injuries.
The question I just have to keep asking myself, was all of this really worth just to lift home? I've had to rethink my life, leave my academic education behind and discover the limits of my condition.
I feel as if young people of about driving age need to know how harsh the effects of real life road accidents can be, and I feel that if I had been able to be educated in a similar way, the results of my accident might have been very different.
10 years later, at the age of 25, he still requires one-to-one care, 24 hours a day, due to the damage to his frontal lobe area of his brain, which causes problems with short-term memory, movements of specific body parts. He has some paralysis to his left side and therefore walks with a stick for short distances, but has to rely on an electric wheelchair for longer distances.
I've been through stages of complete locked-in syndrome, which means being unable to speak or move, to a year in a wheelchair, which I still have to use.
Everyone knows the rules that you're not allowed to drink and drive, you're not allowed to speak on your mobile phone, but no one really understands how it could impact on your life. Me, for example, I've found out that it's changed my life 100%. There's nothing about my life now which was the same before I had my road traffic collision. So I feel it's very important for these young people to understand what will happen, you know.
Good afternoon. My name's Chris. I'm a paramedic with the South East Coast Ambulance Service, where I've served for the last 20 years. And as you can imagine, in that time, I've seen a lot of scenes like that. I'd like to tell you about a particular incident I attended on New Year's Day a few years ago, and it sort of sticks in my mind a bit.
Chris Atfield has been a paramedic with South East Coast Ambulance Service for 20 years. He has also attended countless road traffic collisions. He leaves the stage with a message that certainly leaves the audience remembering his words of advice.
I'd like to leave you with a little message just before I go, and it's one I wear on my motorbike jacket. And it just reads, "Don't drive faster than your guardian angel can fly."
I think the hard-hitting approach is the way it's got to be done, but with us doing it, we can tell it from the heart. We're unfortunately out there and we have to deal with it, rather than put an actor on the stage who just reads a script. We were there, we've seen it, we don't want them to be involved in it.
My crewmate, like myself, has been in the job for a fair time. We didn't need to say much to each other. We knew this kid was in a bad way.
South East Coast Ambulance Service has been a partner for Safe Drive Stay Alive from the outset, with many other paramedics supporting the events.
I think if I had a message for anyone out there, it's a real world. Take heed of what's said. Go out there and enjoy life, but take it easy. We don't want you to become a statistic.
I was working on station one evening when a call comes in, RTC, person's trapped. So we jumped on the truck, blue lights, getting ourselves ready to get to work. When we arrive, it's my job to follow the officer in charge to see if there is anyone trapped. And if there is, how are we going to go about getting them out?
Emma Kite has been a firefighter for 7 years and has also been a member of the Safe Drive Stay Alive team since the outset. After completing her firefighter training, she attended many road traffic collisions and speaks on stage about her first fatal incident involving a young person.
The story that I chose was because it was the first ever fatal accident that I'd been to. I'd been in the job for a year. We'd been to lots of road traffic collisions, but none of which had resulted in any fatalities. So when I was on the way to this particular job, I didn't anticipate seeing a dead body. I had going through my head what I needed to do at the job to, help get this person that was going to be trapped out of the car. So when we arrived, and there was nothing for us to do other than stand back and watch the police do their investigation, it gave me a lot of time to think about their family and what they were going through, and obviously the story that I talk about, the brother and the mother both arrive at the incident, and it was very emotional.
Her very emotional speech is both powerful and hard-hitting, and shows how members of the emergency services can, and often do, get emotionally involved with the traumatic scene that they are faced with on a daily basis.
And his best friend that was in the car with him when it was overturning and the windows were crashing in around them was held in his seat by a seatbelt. And it saved his life because he crawled out with relatively minor injuries. And when he crawled out and he stood there and he looked down at his best friend, who hadn't been wearing a seatbelt. And I'm sure that image is going to stay with him to the day he dies.
Anyone who hasn't seen the Safe Drive Stay Alive show, they need to see it as a necessity. Everybody that attends college, school, even adults, it should be compulsory.
You already know all the rules. It's up to you whether you follow them or not.
We as a fire and rescue service evaluate all of our Safe Drive Stay Alive events in the form of questionnaires completed by students who have attended the shows. The feedback is invaluable to the service as it allows us to adapt the production and tailor its content to cover all aspects and consequences of road traffic collisions.
When I arrived this morning, I thought I would just see, a couple of scenarios and, hear from a couple of the people that were either victims or knew the people, but it was more, you know, play with your emotions really. And I think that's what it needs to do.
I was kind of expecting something to be like pictures, people talking about different things they've experienced and things like that, but I wasn't expecting someone's mum who's experienced something awful like that to come in and speak about the trauma she's gone through. It's horrible.
Well, when I first came in, I was expecting it to be more like pictures and stuff like that of people's accidents and stuff. At first when we came in, we was having a bit of a giggle and a joke, saying that it's not that bad, but when the mum came up and was saying how her son died and that she'll never see him again, it really just puts a pit in your stomach that, you realise that you don't get a second chance all the time and that it can just end by a click of the fingers or just by doing something stupid at the wheel of a car.
I think it's probably just has a better effect than what they necessarily see on TV as part of just everyday television, because obviously it's coming from us personally on our own experiences, and I sometimes think that if they could get a snapshot of what we see between us or a snapshot of what it's like working within the hospital, it would change their outlook on a lot, because it certainly changes mine and makes me a lot more aware of life and how precious it is.
The film, obviously, it's not nice to see. You never want to see stuff put right in front of you, but when you're actually having people tell you that they have to deal with that on a daily basis, or they've had to live with it because of what other people have done on the road, and they've lost loved ones or even friends, you don't even have to know someone that well, it can still really hurt to know that you're never actually going to see them again. And I think with having all the emergency services all in one place to be able to tell you what they have to see and how you can actually do better, then I think it's really effective and really helps.
How do you feel about seeing it twice in a row now?
I came in today and I was expecting I'd already experienced it, so I wouldn't be booing my eyes out, and it wouldn't affect me as much, but it did, and especially with the guy that had actually went to prison for it, that was a massive change, because you never really think about it from the guy that caused the accident. You never think of it from his point of view, and it's really hard hitting.
So you found it interesting to see from two different angles. Yeah. How does that change your opinion now to driving if you're not already driving?
Well, I'm definitely, if I ever do drive, I'm definitely going to be a lot more cautious. I never want this sort of thing to happen to anyone.
The biggest and most popular comment was the fact that we didn't have a speaker who had actually been the cause of a collision or who had seriously injured or killed someone.
I made one fatal mistake in my life, and that was to have one drink too many and get on my bike to go home.
In November 2013, Gary Burke joined the team after being released from prison some 2 months earlier for causing death by dangerous driving.
I knew that at that moment my life would never be the same again. I had not only changed my life forever, but had destroyed another family. I had taken the life of a loved one, a husband, a father, an uncle, a granddad.
I actually had a motorcycle accident which involved the death of a pedestrian, and for that I went to prison. And while I was in prison, I made the conscious effort to try and. I wanted to do this. I wanted to put something back for the wrong I did. I wanted to do it right, so that people would think and see and understand that if you do something wrong, then you're going to pay you could pay the ultimate price, or in my case, I paid with a prison sentence.
I had totally ruined one woman's life, as I had robbed her of the most precious thing she had, and for that I will be forever remorseful.
Early feedback clearly showed that his story is both powerful and impacted on the students.
I knew I was in big trouble and was breathalyzed at the scene and taken to the local hospital where I was assessed for my injuries. It was 3 long weeks before I was officially charged with causing death due to careless driving, whilst over the legal limit I was 2.5 times over.
Safe Drive Stay Alive has been extremely successful and has received an excellent response by way of positive feedback from the students that have attended the event. It has county-wide recognition and has for a long time been core business for West Sussex Fire and Rescue Service.
When people ask me, why did you join a job where you see such horrific sights? I didn't join to cut dead bodies out of cars. I joined to help, to make a difference.
The car left the road and slammed into the other vehicle at a combined speed of over 120 miles per hour, killing the driver, the passenger and the unborn baby instantly.
Let me tell you something. I never, ever thought I would be in this sort of a position.
So please think when you're out in a car or a motorbike, they're lethal weapons, and your life is so precious, and you don't want the police knocking on your door to tell them that they lost their son or their daughter.
Don't drive faster than your guardian angel can fly.
He started just shouting at me, "It should be me, it should be me."
On this evening, I had died and was being rushed to Worthing A&E, where nurses had the first challenge of resuscitating me and bringing me back to life.
So next time you get into a car, drivers, think. Don't drive under the influence of drink. Don't use your phone, and don't show off because it's not big.
You already know all the rules. It's down to you guys whether or not you want to follow them. Thanks for listening.
For more information about Safe Drive Stay Alive, please visit www.westsussex.gov.uk/fire or contact us on 01243 642 878. You can also join us on the Facebook at Safe Drive Stay Alive West Sussex.